Section 1. Hey, welcome back to Deployed AI. Today we're looking at something that flips the usual AI coding assistant narrative on its head. Everyone's obsessed with making models smarter, bigger, more capable. Modulus says, that's not actually the bottleneck. The bottleneck is context. Specifically, cross-repository context. So what does Modulus actually do? It acts as a knowledge orchestration layer for coding agents. In plain English, when your AI coding assistant is working on a task, it typically only sees the files you've opened, maybe the current repo. That's it. But real software doesn't live in one repository. You've got a front-end repo, a back-end repo, shared libraries, internal SDKs, config schemas spread across 5 different places. The agent is flying blind across most of your codebase. Modulus solves this by indexing multiple repositories simultaneously and making that knowledge available to the coding agent in real time. When the agent needs to understand how a function works in your shared utilities library while writing code in your front-end app, Modulus surfaces that context automatically. It's not just file search, it builds a semantic understanding of relationships across repos, which APIs are consumed where, which types are shared, which patterns repeat across codebases. Concrete example, imagine your agent is writing a new endpoint in your Node.js backend. It needs to know what the Python data service returns, what the frontend expects as a response shape, and whether there's already a validation schema defined somewhere else. Without cross-repo context, the agent guesses or hallucinates. With Modulus, it actually knows. The interface integrates with existing agent frameworks. It's designed to plug into the tooling you're already using rather than replacing it. Section 2. Okay, let's be straight about what Modulus does not do, because this is important. First, it does not make a bad coding agent good. If your underlying model can't reason about code well, more context isn't going to save it. Modulus assumes you already have a functional agent, it just gives that agent better information to work with. Second, it's not a full IDE or autonomous developer. It doesn't write code end-to-end, it doesn't deploy things, it doesn't manage pull requests. It is specifically focused on the knowledge retrieval and orchestration problem. Think of it as the memory layer, not the execution layer. Third, cross-repo indexing has real costs. Indexing large codebases takes time and compute. If your repos are massive, we're talking millions of lines, the initial setup isn't instant. And keeping that index fresh as code changes requires ongoing infrastructure. This isn't a lightweight plugin, it's a system you need to run and maintain. For small teams or small codebases, the overhead might outweigh the benefit. Fourth, it doesn't solve the problem of agents making incorrect edits. Even with perfect context, the agent can still produce wrong code. Modulus reduces one major failure mode, lack of information, but it doesn't eliminate the others. Human review is still mandatory. And fifth, proprietary codebases. If your company has strict data governance rules, you'll need to think carefully about where this indexing happens, what leaves your environment, and who has access to it. That's a real operational concern, not a deal breaker necessarily, but something you need to evaluate. Section 3. Now, what could Modulus realistically grow into? Let's stick to plausible territory. The most natural evolution is deeper integration with CI/CD pipelines. Imagine the knowledge graph automatically updating every time a pull request is merged. The agent always has a fresh, accurate picture of every repository without anyone manually triggering reindexing. That's achievable with current tooling and would dramatically reduce maintenance overhead. Another realistic direction, impact analysis. If Modulus already understands how functions, types, and APIs relate across repos, it's sitting on the data needed to answer, if I change this interface in the shared library, what breaks across all our downstream repos? That's genuinely valuable for large engineering teams and is a natural extension of what the knowledge graph already contains. There's also a plausible path toward agent coordination, not one agent working alone, but multiple specialized agents, each focused on a different repository or domain, sharing a common knowledge layer through Modulus. One agent handles front-end context, another handles infrastructure, they communicate through the shared graph. That's not science fiction, that's an architectural pattern already being explored in multi-agent frameworks. And practically better IDE integrations. Right now, this is somewhat infrastructure level. A tighter integration with tools like Cursor or direct MCP server support would make adoption much smoother for individual developers, not just platform teams. Section 4. So why does Modulus exist? What's the actual problem it's responding to? Here's the reality of software engineering at scale: no non-trivial product lives in a single repository anymore. Monorepos help, but they're not universal. Microservices architectures mean your code is intentionally fragmented across dozens of services. And as companies grow, the knowledge about how these pieces connect stops living in the code itself and starts living only in the heads of senior engineers who've been there long enough to remember. When you introduce a coding agent into this environment, you're essentially giving it amnesia. It has incredible ability to write and reason about code, but only the code it can see. Every cross-repo dependency, every shared contract, every API that exists in a different repo, invisible. And so the agent either fails completely, or worse, it confidently writes code that contradicts existing systems it didn't know about. The team behind Modulus identified something that I think the broader AI coding tool market has missed: model capability is not the limiting factor for most enterprise coding agent failures. Context availability is. You can run the best model in the world on an agent that only sees 10% of your codebase, and it will still fail 90% of the time on cross-repo tasks. This is the knowledge orchestration problem, and it's not glamorous. It doesn't get the press that a new model release gets, but it's arguably more important for actually deploying agents that work in production engineering environments. That's the bet Modulus is making. Not smarter agents, better informed agents. And honestly, as someone who watches real-world AI deployments, that bet is worth paying attention to. If you're building with coding agents at any serious scale, check out modulus.so, links in the description. Let me know in the comments whether you've hit the cross-repo context wall yourself. I'm betting most of you have. See you in the next one.